Brothers and sisters, we're here on at Full Belly Farm, about an hour and a half north of Berkeley, and it's a privilege to be here. Full Belly Farm is a magnificent farm, one of the finest in California, and that means the United States, and they produce an extraordinary variety of fruits and vegetables. They even make nut butters too, and they've been established for quite some time. They are a pillar of the organic food industry. They were at the very, very beginning of the organic certification movement. They are pioneers in many, many respects. And it's a privilege and honor today to be speaking with Judith Redmond of Full Belly Farm. And we have so many questions. We would like to know about the farm. The first question is that when did the farm get started, and what was the impetus? What created the farm? What was the driving force and the vision of the farm?
Full Belly Farm was created in 1985. Mm-hmm. So we've been here growing organically on this soil for more than 30 years, mm-hmm. which is very special, mm-hmm. because I think as the soil builds up in organic care and attention, it becomes better for the crops. They become more nutritious and more delicious. So we've been here for 30 years, and I think we came together, four of the founding owners, because we were interested in sustainable agriculture, organic agriculture. We had a hope that with really good stewardship of the farm and of the soil, we could grow superior products and more nutritious products, mm-hmm. and we enjoyed being outside, and we enjoyed working with our hands, and I think that was our vision.
How wonderful! So it consists, in my understanding, of four different families. Is that the case? And you all came together at a particular time, and you all had a commonality, a common vision, a common purpose, and it has grown from there.
I think that's about right. Yeah, there are four people here that are owners still, mm-hmm. that were in early on in creating Full Belly Farm. Mm. Two of them are married, and so really you could say it was more like three families.
Three families.
Yeah, and four people. And now there's six owners.
Well, six owners.
There's because the second generation has started farming.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah, so Drew and Paul Rivers Muller, their eldest child their son is now also an owner of Full Belly Farm.
Oh,
and he and his wife manage our catering and events and value-added projects.
So would it be correct to say it's a partnership?
Yeah.
It's a partnership.
It's a partnership
of individuals and of families. That's to us that's very, very creative indeed. And my next question: what is the extent? Just approximately how much land do you happen to have under cultivation?
There's about 400 acres mm-hmm. under cultivation. So there's row crops like fruit, lots of vegetables, herbs, and flowers. Then there's also some orchards like stone crops and walnuts, stone fruits, and walnuts. And there's also a lot of grain. There's about 60 acres of grain, which here in this climate you can grow without irrigation. Mm. So
that's very, very exciting. For example, grain. That's something I'm just learning about. What are your principal grains?
Well, wheat. So we sell whole wheat flour and also wheat berries. That's the main thing. But we also have animals here. So we have chickens that we sell their eggs. We have sheep that we sell their meat and their yarn. And those animals, we grow food for them. And mostly they eat the green waste from the farm, but having some grain on hand for them is also really important.
Oh, so you have a wonderful cycle. The various green matter, it becomes food for the animals, and of course the most precious thing, the animals' manure, which is utterly precious. And utterly precious if you're an organic farm. That, of course, becomes part of this wonderful cycle. I'm so very, very gratified to hear. What are your principal vegetable crops?
Tomatoes, which is cherry tomatoes, heirloom tomatoes, and then other more standard varieties of tomatoes. Flowers, well, that's not vegetables, but that's our second revenue generator a lot of years. Potatoes, melons, those are the big ones.
Oh, how exciting.
Tomatoes, melons, yeah.
And I just want to say, their tomatoes are the most delicious and the most special there. I can hardly understand that within is something like they might actually be appearing within 2 or 3 weeks or something like that, or is that
the cherry tomatoes are always the first, and I think it'd be at least 3 weeks. It's just been cool, a very very cool spring, so. We're waiting with bated breath.
How exciting. How very, very exciting. And of course, the melons that they produce are just out of this world, are just magnificent.
Yeah, this is a Mediterranean climate, so there aren't many places in the world that are Mediterranean climates where you can grow as many things as we grow. But it's got, in the summertime, very, very hot days and cool nights, and that really brings the flavor out for for melons and tomatoes especially.
And what about the nuts, the fruits and nuts? How about those? I know that you produce magnificent walnuts. From time to time we use this in making Living Tree walnut butter, but you also grow almonds too.
Very few almonds. We don't have a lot of almonds. We do have a new almond orchard that we planted. It's a 12-acre orchard, and the exciting thing about our 12-acre almond orchard is that it's completely off-grid. So we put in a solar installation for the almonds, and so we can run our pump for irrigation completely on solar, and there's no PG&E, so we're going to call it our solar powered almond butter. There's
a self-contained almond orchard.
There's no electricity over there.
So exciting.
Yeah,
so exciting. Very good.
But that's a few. The trees are in their second year, so a couple years off.
You also produce stone fruits.
Peaches,
magnificent peaches, by the way.
Some plums, mostly peaches, some plums and some apricots. But we have a lot of different varieties of peaches.
Yeah, and besides tomato, what are some of your other? Your other principal vegetables happen to be magnificent broccoli and potatoes. But of course, how exciting indeed. So my question is this: what do you see as your overall purpose, or the overall projects in the coming years ahead? Are you expanding as far as landmass? Are you purchasing more land and cultivating it and bringing it under cultivation, or are you pretty much set as far as the extent of the farm?
I think our concept is more to try and get the most out of the land that we are using right now. So that, for example, the tomatoes that we grow, we can, if we have tomatoes that are cosmetically damaged or that we can't sell, we can turn them into tomato sauce, or we can turn them into salsa or hot sauce or sun-dried tomatoes. So instead, we're trying to look at every part of what we do and reduce as much as possible any waste there, and really get the most out of everything.
Right.
And so that's, in a certain way, that's an expansion, but it's not an expansion in terms of land.
In terms of land, it's an intensive expansion.
Yeah.
And also that makes so much sense. Instead of just selling a tomato, and this week, where instead of just selling a tomato, you sell tomato paste, tomato sauce, tomato this, tomato that. That makes so much economic sense.
Yeah.
Indeed. Good. I'm very good. You also sell. Could I be mistaken? But I believe I've seen olives from time to time. You also grow olives too.
We have olives. Not a lot of olives, but we sell olive oil. And olives as well. Yeah.
How exciting!
So we're very diversified.
I see. And and as far as your main avenues of sales, Berkeley is blessed by seeing their stand at the Berkeley Farmers Market. There, I'm a regular patron. I think you'll agree. And we're all blessed by the fruits and vegetables that they bring to Berkeley week after week after week. What other channels are? Oh, I'd like to ask in particular about your CSA program.
Yeah. So the channels, the ways that we sell produce, one of them is the farmers markets, and there are 3 per week. Another is to restaurants, stores, and wholesale distributors, and that's the biggest in terms of revenue. That's the majority of the revenue. And then the third would be our community-supported agriculture program. So we make boxes of produce, and they have maybe 7 items in it right now, and people pay in advance and then go to a community pickup site of some sort and pick up their produce once a week.
Once a week. So in other words, it's a regular set box
Yeah.
of things you have available, and people simply sign up for it and simply and pick up at various places, in Berkeley and Oakland and so forth. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful concept indeed.
Yeah, it's a great way to make sure that for people who want to eat healthfully and eat seasonally, it's really one of the best options out there, because you are sort of, you get things in your box that you may not be used to, and you learn how to use them. You learn how to cook them and serve them for your meals.
That's such an exciting avenue. That is such an exciting prospect. I'm very, very glad to hear it. And how can the community become more involved with your work? Are there avenues or channels for that?
Yeah, well, we have a website and a weekly blog, News from the Farm, so that comes up on our website every week. And there's events on the farm. We offer tours, we offer workshops, we offer festivals and things like that. The big festival that we have every year is our Hose Down Harvest Festival. It's the first Saturday in October, and I think that's a great way to get involved, because it's a fundraiser for sustainable agriculture and rural communities. All of the proceeds from the festival are donated to nonprofit organizations, and it relies on hundreds, probably 300 or 400 volunteers to make it happen. So right now we're signing volunteers up and giving them shifts that they will perform for us to make the Hose Down Harvest Festival a success. So I think the best source of information about that is just being on our mailing list and learning about our activities and our events through the website.
Yeah, they have a magnificent website, folks. I urge you to go ahead, to view it and to study more about the magnificent work that they're doing. And it seems to me, from what I read online and so forth, that family farmers in general are diminishing greatly in extent, and there's a real challenge of the corporate agriculture and high-tech agriculture and so forth. And what are you doing, or what measures are you taking to preserve small family farms?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of agriculture in general in California, but yes, I think the farms that are the most challenged and will be the most challenged as time passes are the smaller farms, because they don't have a lot of cushion, they don't have a lot of margin to rely on, and there's a number of issues. I think sort of an increasing regulatory burden in California compared to really anywhere else in the world and any other state in the country is very challenging for small scale farmers, because the paperwork, the regulations are so extensive that it just takes a lot of time and effort to deal with them. California also has very, very high labor standards, very, very high wages, which is a great thing. But in agriculture, where the margins are low and the profits aren't really there to support that, what it means is that California agriculture will be competing with other places where labor is much less expensive. Labor is 60% of our expenses. So
that's phenomenal.
It's much higher than in other sectors.
I can understand that.
You know, I think that agriculture needs to be able to tell its story a little better to California consumers, and I think some of the policies need to be reviewed. And so we have organizations like Community Alliance with Family Farmers that help us analyze and think about and propose better policies and better ways of thinking in agriculture. So that's I think that organization CAF is one of the best in terms of helping to support family farm agriculture.
How exciting! How exciting! I'm so glad that small farmers here in California are getting it together and stating their case.
Yeah.
And standing up and being counted.
That's
right. so important, Pete.
Yeah.
And then I want to tell you about a marvel that concerns me, Judith. All winter long, when I would go into any of the grocery stores or natural food stores in Berkeley, what would I see there? But I would see magnificent raspberries, magnificent blackberries, picture perfect. All winter long, when I would go in the stores, I would see magnificent cherry tomatoes. The tomatoes are just glowing, picture perfect, and so forth. All this produce is from Mexico, and it's all hydroponic for the most part. And as an agricultural, as somebody who's deeply concerned with agriculture, I wonder about this. I wonder about this truly because from what I read in the literature, this is part of a great wave, and these places, these artificial greenhouses are going up everywhere where vegetables and even fruits are grown under artificial circumstances, even in artificial light, artificial atmosphere, and most important of all, they're grown in chemical soup, not soil as we understand this. And yet it seems what is particularly disturbing to me is that yet these operations are certified organic, USDA. And I was wondering if you could offer us some insights in that regard.
Yeah, so there's a national program, the National Organic Program, that has a board of stakeholders that help advise and set policy for organic agriculture in this country. And there's been a great deal of controversy over whether hydroponic operations should be certified organic. And I'm part of an organization, it's a national organization called the Organic Farmers Association, and we've done numerous surveys of certified organic farmers in this country, and pretty overwhelmingly the organic farmers say that if something's grown hydroponically, it should not be considered organic, because organic fundamentally is about soil health and environmental caring for the environment, taking care of environmental issues. And so it's not just about what chemicals you can't use or what list of practices you can only use on a farm. That's not really what organic is about. It's a much bigger picture than that. And if something's not grown in the soil, all kinds of problems follow from that. I think that those plants may have a certain very limited list of nutrients in them, but they're not going to have all the micronutrients and all of the nutrition that something grown in the soil will have. Another problem is that the certifiers are certifying those hydroponic growers immediately rather than insisting upon a 3-year transition. So because they're not in the soil, they're being given certification immediately. As soon as they put up a greenhouse, they're being certified organic.
Instant certification.
And that's really different than on an organic farm like this, where you have to make sure that your environment has been free of chemicals for 3 years. So we think that growing things hydroponically is fine, but that they shouldn't be labeled organic. And
Absolutely.
so there's a big discussion ongoing about that to see if we can reclaim that territory.
Reclaim that territory. I'm so very, very glad to see that, because to me that's a vital issue that goes to the very, very heart of what is organic in this country and what really matters, and the soil, building up the soil. And for those who are concerned about climate change, the whole essence of climate change, as far as I'm concerned, is the miracle of how plants fix carbon dioxide take carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and fix it into the soil. And this is a fundament. So it seems to me that organics has a very, very vital role in mitigating climate change, whereas hydroponics, in my understanding, simply sidesteps that. The other thing which I've got to bring up is that I take so much pleasure, Judy, in going around here and watching the lambs and the sheep and the lambs and the chickens and the goats and all of your animals just out there in these magnificent pastures. And I contrast this. You can go on YouTube and you can see the unspeakable things that are done to animals, the unspeakable conditions on which animals are raised, even dairy cows, pigs, for example, chickens, for example, confined in unspeakable buildings, and some of them never even allowed to go outside, to be in grass and trees and nature their entire lives, confined in buildings their entire lives. To me, this is an affront. This is a terrible insult to all of nature. And I was wondering, and yet, the terrible thing is, in my humble understanding, and yet animals raised in such unspeakable circumstances, such shocking circumstances, the meat or eggs or milk of these animals can still be, at this moment, certified organic. Now, I was wondering if you could say a few words about that.
The entire industry, from the certifiers to the farmers to even the big businesses, worked for many, many years on a piece of legislation that would have defined animal welfare practices for organic. And it had been proposed, and then the really big dairies and growers wanted it changed and made it not quite as strict, and so it was changed. But basically, we got it to a form which everyone could agree to, even the big guys. And the Trump administration listened to the industry and basically said that they said, we're not going to enforce, we're not going to have this rule be part of organic, because we don't think that animal welfare is an important part of organic agriculture. So they have a very, very, very narrow opinion of what organic agriculture is, and so animal welfare now hasn't really been perfectly defined for the certifiers. And so some places are being certified that aren't really treating their animals well. And I think that if you are a meat eater, you should be careful to eat meat that comes from a source that you know, from people that you know, because I don't think anyone really wants to eat meat that's been tortured. Animals should not be tortured, and they are being tortured by these really, really large growers. And so I think that all of us could just eat a little less meat and eat it from farms that we know aren't torturing their animals. That's pretty strong words, but it's what's going on. And I think if you take care of animals by moving them through pasture, by having them outside, all of the things that Jesse talked about, it's going to be more expensive. That meat is going to be more expensive. And I would just say that it's worth it. And we all need to make that choice.
The bottom line is nothing can take the place of one-to-one contact, of getting to know your local farmer, of doing as much shopping as you can at your local farmer's market, seeing the farmer there, shaking their hand, greeting them by name. Nothing can take the place, even in this day with all the certifications, the labels, the this and that, and whatever. Nothing can take the place between shaking their hands and eye-to-eye contact and knowing who your grower is and who is producing the food that you eat. Good. I'm glad we're discussing these various things. And Judy, I would want to ask if you could summarize a bit, if you may, about your overall direction and purpose, and what you see the role of Full Belly locally, and as far as the overall direction and purpose in American organic agriculture.
Well, I think just we're pretty absorbed just in keeping this farm itself afloat. So it's a 7 days a week effort to really keep all of the details covered, keep the crops in the ground, keep them healthy, keep them irrigated at this time of year, the summertime when it gets hot. To take care of all of those details is a very, very big job. Farming is very labor intensive and very demanding. So I think that's one of the main focuses that we have, is how to make this farm, how to help this farm to survive as climate change and regulatory pressures and increased costs of labor, all of those things impact us. How to see, how to help this farm survive through all of that is going to be our biggest challenge, and it's going to take really everything that we've got, all of our attention, all of our thinking, all of our creativity and ingenuity. I think is going to have to focus right there.
Thomas Jefferson, over 150, 200 years ago, had it right when he talked about the small family farms and how important they were and how vital they were to this democracy. The personal qualities of integrity and perseverance and going ahead and resilience are qualities that we so much need in this America today, which seems to have lost its moorings, its rootings, and is going hither and yon without a well-defined purpose, without getting back to basics. And that's what it's all about, to getting back to basics. And as we'll never tire of preaching, brothers and sisters, if you're concerned about the food you eat, grow as much of it yourself as you possibly can. A backyard garden, a front yard garden, and if you live in an apartment, join a community garden. These are essential things for anyone who is concerned about food. Judy, it has been a privilege and an honor to be here in these bucolic circumstances. The air is so sweet here. We could hear the animals in the background. It is a privilege and honor indeed, and thank you for standing up for what is right and for what is truly living and alive in this America. Thank you so very much indeed.
Well, thank you guys for coming. Thank you. Yeah.